You have to follow the darn recipe. So I'm Brita Long for the Happier Attorney, and this is the channel where we talk about flat fees and how they work and mindset. And this is why, if you have used flat fees and they haven't worked, this is why. Period. I've been using flat fees exclusively for well over 15 years. I have taught flat fees to hundreds of other attorneys for the last 5 years. This is what you need to know about flat fees not working. You have to follow the recipe. If you follow it precisely, it works, period. It doesn't matter your practice area. It doesn't matter where you practice. It doesn't matter what clients you have. It works if you follow the recipe. If you do not follow it precisely with every ingredient, it won't work, period. So all of these comments, oh, flat fees don't work in family law. Yeah, they do. How do you explain me and hundreds of other family law attorneys who use flat fees exclusively? Oh, they don't work in litigation. Yeah, they do. Oh, they don't work in complex cases. Yeah, they do. Now, there are some things that might be easier, but yeah, they do work, but you have to follow the recipe. So flat fees are a skill, and just like any other skill, how you learn it is you use a tried and true method, a recipe, and you try it, and the first time, it probably doesn't work out that well, and you keep trying. You keep trying, and you get better and better and better. Flat fees also have to have the requirement that you have to have the right mindset. You can't just think that your value is your time, because then you're going to underprice. You can't buy into the notion that you as an attorney don't have a right to get paid, because then you're going to underprice. You can't buy into the notion that nobody's going to pay your prices, because then you're not going to do the things that are required to make the money that you deserve to make. You're not going to charge what your work actually calls for. You're not going to market to the right people who will actually pay those prices, okay? If you don't believe somebody's going to pay it, guess what? They're not going to pay it. And we're not talking about outrageous prices. We're not talking about unreasonable prices. I can tell you, I don't know how many hundreds of attorneys I've talked to about this. I've talked to maybe one who I was like, ooh, that was a little high for what you were offering. One. Everybody else is so far under the mark, it's not even funny. So think of it like this. If you were trying to make bread and you had never baked anything in your life, what would you do? You would get a good recipe. A recipe from Julia Childs is going to be a whole lot better than random Betty on the internet, okay? Then you would read it several times. You would gather all your ingredients. You would follow it precisely. If it called for a teaspoon of salt, you're not going to add a tablespoon of salt and then go, oh, why did this not work? If it called for yeast, you wouldn't just leave it out and then go, what happened? Okay? You would follow it precisely. And then you would bake it, and you know what? You might have an okay loaf of bread. It's not going to be great the first time you bake it. And then you would try it over and over and over again. And before you knew it, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm making bread. This is awesome. Okay? And then you could start to experiment and add whatever ingredients you wanted. But you would follow the recipe first and get it down first. Okay? There are so many of you who are not following, and you're just trying flat fees without knowing what you're doing at all. And then you're sitting there going, why isn't this working? Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk. That's why it's not working. Set your ego aside. This is a skill. Just because you're smart doesn't mean you should be able to do this. Just because you're a great attorney, an experienced attorney, doesn't mean that you should be able to do this. This is a skill, just like any other skill. It also is a skill that makes you think differently, okay? Which is something that you're not used to. So when I talk to attorneys and they're like, flat fees aren't working, and I question them about it every single time when I say, oh, so you have your parameters of representation set. You have your events on which representation will end. You have your dates under which representation will end. No. Okay. Again, pretty important ingredients. That's like saying I'm making bread without flour. No, you're not. Have you kept those parameters? Just because it's in your fee agreement doesn't mean squat if you're not going to follow it. No. Okay. Do you have clear boundaries? Did you set those clear boundaries with your clients as to what the representation covers and what it doesn't? And did you stick with them? No. Okay. Did you know how to set your price? And did you stick with it? Or did you say, okay, I'm going to charge $5,000 for that, and then you chickened out and you charged $2,000 because your brain got in the way. Your brain, oh, nobody's going to buy, I can't charge that much, blah, blah, blah. If $5,000 is the appropriate price and you're charging $2,000, it's not going to work. Did you say that number with confidence? Or did you like, oh, that'll be $10,000? No, guess what? Nobody's going to buy that. If you don't believe it, nobody else is going to. Did you know your target client? And is your marketing targeting them? Or are you just whoever is walking through the door? Okay? Because let me tell you, if you are trying to sell a high-end luxury good in a Walmart parking lot, that ain't going to work. Okay? So is your marketing, your office, your service, your work product, is that all consistent across the board with who you want to serve and what your goals are? Because I see a whole lot of attorneys who are trying to give a high-end service or at least a middle high-end service, great work product, and they're charging Walmart prices. That is a recipe for disaster, okay? So if you do not follow the recipe, it's not going to work. Period. If you follow it, it will work. Probably not perfectly the first time. Have some realistic and reasonable expectations. And you keep trying it. Is it worth it? Oh my gosh, absolutely. Is it worth learning this skill? Game changing. Game changing. So some of you are like, well, what's the recipe? What's the recipe? Okay, I'll tell you what it isn't. It isn't trying to get free little tidbits off of other attorneys. Oh, what's the fee agreement? That is one tiny piece, one tiny ingredient. And you don't know if somebody else's fee agreement is crap, by the way. So don't do that. If you're trying to learn flat fees and you're trying to do it free or on the cheap, that's going to be the most expensive lesson you ever learn. Here's the recipe. It's in the Happier Attorney. You can get it on Amazon. Heck, I'll give it to you for free, okay? Just write in the comment. You can get it for free, a PDF of it, with a check sheet. Better yet, if you are serious about this, which I hope you are, like this is not something to play with. If you're serious about it, then learn how to do it through the course or the workshops. But that's the recipe. That's the recipe and the class. Learn how to do it right. But if you're, and this might tick some people off, but it's the truth. If you are not willing to invest a little bit of time and at least read the book and follow the recipe to a T, I can't help you. Neither can anybody else. I can tell you a free fee agreement from some random attorney ain't going to help you. That's going to get you in big ass trouble. That's why in the Facebook group, Attorneys of Flat Fees, we don't allow that. I don't allow it because it's going to get you in trouble. So it's a little bit of a rant today, but this is why it's not working. You got to just do the extra little step. It's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. But follow the recipe. Okay? So thanks for listening to my rant. Take care.